Hello and welcome to SOUQ PULSE. It's a very, very beautiful evening, start of the evening here in West Africa, Lagos to be precise, and this is SOUQ News. Now, for those of you that are still sitting on a long thing, this is where you are meant to be. So don't think you made a mistake. Don't think maybe it's one of those, This is where you are meant to be. We are all about positivities. Where we go out, we not just look at development stories, we not just look at shaping policy, we not just look at advancing not just businesses or development, but making sure that people talk for SOUQ PULSE and making sure that businesses make headway for SOUQ News. Because if businesses do not progress, then we know there is a problem. So here we talk. We tell you, don't keep quiet. It doesn't matter what divide you are, who you voted for, who you will vote for, whether you are trying to japa or return, or whether you are looking at Trump or Harris. We talk. My name is Chuks, John Rogers Chuks, and this is SOUQ PULSE. We're going on a very short break, and when we return, I'll bring this back on our timeline. I will talk about it. And if you remember very well, there was this particular day that a certain learned fellow decided to shake some good tables. And that table he shook that day is where we are going to. We'll have a guest who happens to be very knowledgeable and a leader in his chosen field and where we are heading to. He will shed more light on this. So, hey, you won't miss a single second of today's programming. So call up your friends, call up your neighbors, your co-workers, tell them it's time for SOUQ PULSE, where we talk. Don't go anywhere. SOUQ PULSE will be right back. Welcome back. It's SOUQ PULSE, and today we are dwelling on that same theme line on this particular program, which is productivity. If you know very well, say Africa, we must move. If Asia is running, Europe left long ago, and every other person in the Middle East, they are not just catching up, they are doing something completely new and have gone way, way ahead. We say, Africa, don't catch up, just run. Bring something to the market. Productivity. So we talk across all sectors. Now, for those that remember, let me refresh your memories. On a particular beautiful day, we were talking and the issue came up and a particular agency was mentioned. The River Basin Authorities. That's where we are going to today. So for those that are wondering, a particular learned fellow brought that particular phrase that happened to be an agency up. And we have him here today. And we'll also be joined by a leader in that particular sector. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, join me on SOUQ PULSE for this beautiful start of the evening, Dr. Idahosa Osamhanze. So you're welcome.
Chuks, good evening, good Nigeria.
And good SOUQ.
A good SOUQ evening.
Good. I have to introduce you before I go further. Now, for those that are also there thinking, call up everybody now, let's talk. Now, we're looking at the Nigerian River Basin Authorities. There are several of them. I'll give you all of their names. So just hang in there. And we're asking this particular question, going to a specific take, agriculture. What impact have they made on agriculture in the last 51 years? The first came to being in 1973. That's Sokoto and Lake Chad River Basins. Now it's 51 years. That's some good time, right? Now, for those that are wondering, the government brought up these basins and gave them a tax. Majorly manage water resources, manage development of rural places, help agriculture, directly mandate. Food production, crop. Some of these mandates, when we look at how it has been expanded over time, we'll now start asking certain questions. We will talk about them here. But one major assignment of the river basins is agriculture. So if the agri sector suffers, then we must talk. And when we talk, we ask questions. And there's no other and better person to ask, aside the doc in the studio, than also a leader in that particular sector. Your Excellencies, join me as I welcome to join us on SOUQ PULSE for the very first time. He's joining us via Zoom. Engineer Caleb Terkuma Tyowuah. Sir, you're welcome to SOUQ PULSE. Okay, we will continue and he will join us. He's somewhere in Yola and the network is pretty good. So, hey, if you're here, then let's talk. Doc, river basins.
Yeah.
Permit me to call some of them. We have the Chad Basin, who are supposed to be one of the first, and the Sokoto Basin, both of them were the first, 1973. We have the Upper Benue, where our guest happens to be the acting managing director. He's going to join us very soon. We have the Lower Benue River Basin, we have the Cross River Benue, Cross River Basin, Anambra Imo Basin. Some of them were politically motivated, so they balance it out. We have the Niger River Basin, Ogun Oshun River Basin. We have the Bini Owena. I think I remember that one very well. I went to school around there. We have the Niger Delta River Basin, Sokoto Rima, the name was changed. Then Hadija Jamia River Basin and the Upper Niger River Basin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
12 now.
Agencies.
Yeah.
Are we going to call them agencies?
Yeah, they are agencies of government under the Ministry of Water Resources.
Are they under a ministry?
Yes.
They are under a ministry. Yes. Good. They have a budget that is running.
Yeah, but just like a commission, you have a board that drives the entire process of the commission. And of course, the Ministry of Water Resources is represented in the board of the agency.
Ministry of Water Resources.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a business venture, which was initially owned 100% by the government.
Yes.
And efforts are ongoing to see how to commercialize and privatize the agency so that government stakes in it can get a lot lower.
Okay. While we are looking at government stakes getting a lot lower, let's look at deliverables. If we say agriculture, which happens to be the #1 security issue in any nation, if any nation can't feed themselves, then war is not an issue. As long as the belly is taken care of, businesses around food is taken care of, then every other thing can be sorted. Now, in the last 1 year, we've been able to look, okay, can we have a situation where we have all year round planting season, not waiting for the rainy season and dry season?
Yeah, but it's just to look at it globally in the first place.
Leave globally first.
No.
Let's talk about ourselves.
No.
Most times when we say globally, we let things fly.
No, you see, the point I want to make is that there's not so much attraction as to the river basin authorities as for many people. And I don't think if you even ask a Nigerian on the street if they have an idea of what that is, because it's like something that does not exist, because people can see potentials and opportunities around it. And maybe probably
People
because
can see, when you say potentials and opportunities, we have a whole long list of the potentials of the river basin authorities,
yeah. So people can
which
see
is
it. So,
a full template on its own.
yeah, so that is why I am looking at it, that globally speaking, the water resources market is huge. It's put at about $58 trillion annually. Because countries like Australia, countries like Chile, countries like South Africa, countries like Singapore have successfully commercialized and they market the body of their water, and they are making so much resources from it. So the question is not even to say about the food.
I'm holding my lips at that particular last line. When you say commercialize water.
The body of the water. So because there's so much money that nations can get out of it.
Water came free. Water was given to us free. It's just like oxygen. Why do we want to commercialize water?
Yeah, but because you see, it's a commonwealth to everybody. So you cannot actually allow one single individual to enjoy it free of charge without actually translating into resource for other people. So what states like Australia have done, or even in California, they've been able to see, okay, this is privatized and people are allowed to trade water.
Now, when we go this route, don't you think it's going to be the rich not just lording it, but owning the life of the poor?
I don't think so. So what that means is that people who are getting into agriculture, whether it's animal husbandry or food crop, will be able to access water and they're able to pay for it.
And they will pay.
Oh,
okay,
yes.
now for a river that is flowing through my village, a stream that is flowing through my village that was there before I was born, and my forefathers, okay, nobody came to assist them in making any form of irrigation. They used their own ingenuity and used bamboo and transferred that water 5 kilometers and irrigate their farm for free. They will now pay because they're irrigating their farm for their own river in their own land.
Yeah. So this
no. Are you saying yes or yes?
Oh, yes.
Why?
Yeah, because that resource...
The river does not belong to government.
Yeah, of course, government owns the land. So
government owns the land.
Yeah, by international treaty and conventions, all water bodies belong to the government.
Are we going to say no to some of these treaties that are not favoring the people? Now we are deviating, though. But now let's...
So we're not deviating. But it's to say that there's so much money around this agency of government, and that what we need to do is that we already have said severally that government has no business in business, and therefore, if you're setting up an agency that is supposed to be commercial and to be making money, and then of course you own it 100%, what is happening to the mainline ministries also can affect some of all these operations. And this is one of the issues that we need to actually resolve so that we can also be generating money. And this issue of people abusing the body of water can actually stop.
Before people abuse the body of water, let's look at the river basins.
All right, okay.
Let's look at them as we look. Let's drop agriculture and the river basins, which is one of the main reasons why they were formulated in the first place. Why till date, as we speak, our farmers, the people in the village, which is the first place where they sent them to, they didn't tell them to come to Lagos or go to Owerri or go to Minna. They sent them directly to the village.
Yeah, for rural development.
For rural development.
Yeah.
Through irrigation. Why do they still have rainy season, dry season, planting season once a year? Okay, for some crops that are 2-3 months, okay, twice a year. And once the rainy season is gone, no more issues. Except for people that have been able to have big farms.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of resource to be able to channel this water.
51 years.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of resource to be able to, because you find that the history of our 51 year, which has been the history of struggle, like I said to people, Nigeria has been a child of accident, and we have passed through several curves that really would not. So when we are talking 51 years, there's a whole lot of things that you have to factor into it, because this is a 51 years that is full of crisis. Now, and this crisis has not actually enabled the nation to develop in terms of...
If we exonerate them on this issue of, yes, we've had issues for the last 51 years, who are we not going to exonerate?
Yeah, but that is why it is important that as we speak to some of these issues, that we're also looking at it from the positive perspective to say, look, hey, Nigerians, we have plenty of potential.
We are still at that point of potential.
So let's drop all the things that tend to separate or divide us, which basically is politics. And then we begin to focus on the economy and see how we can transform and be like other nations in the world. It is not always too late to start.
If the river basin in, let me give Sokoto, which happens to be a very, very popular one at that, decide to water the Agungi village and make sure, okay, the lecture dwindling or not, there has been several interventions there. Whether they are implemented that way, I'm not sure. We have to go find that out. If the river basin there can say, okay, let's irrigate these villages, the farmers there will be better off. The communities there will be better off. It also profit the river basin in that particular area. So what exactly, are they not seeing the businesses in their own localities?
Yeah, but you see, the business are there. So you have to first put structure in place to drive this entire process.
What structure?
For example,
there's always this mention of structure.
Yeah, because it's important.
Who's the structure? The human beings, or
apart from
the process?
Even the pricing mechanism for the water had to be put in place, because we are not expecting that.
Give the water first, then you cannot say to pay later. Are we looking at pricing when we've not seen the water?
No, it has to be priced adequately, so that, because if government has no money to do the irrigation, you will sure need people to come invest in the sector, and those people who are investing in the sector will be able to determine what's the appropriate pricing, so that it is not too much for a burden for the common man to bear at the end of the day, who is at the end of the value chain. So all this what will make it really effective. Because what we are looking at is a situation where government is finding or having difficulty even running its affair on a daily basis.
Okay, now let's look at these agencies. What if they have a form of collaboration with the local people? We must not depend on a lot of machineries for farm irrigation, because this is very important. We must not depend on a lot of money cost-wise for farm irrigation. We can get the people. They use the same old methods they used before. Take a trench from where it is. Yes, a lot of water will be lost along the way, but if at a point in time, let's say every 500 meters or every 1 kilometer, you have a pond.
Not in the 21st century are we going to be talking about those.
We shouldn't be talking about that, you mean. Good. But we don't have anything.
Yeah, not in the 21st century.
We have traditional irrigation systems that worked.
Yeah, but there are a lot of things that can be done towards that direction. And I think for me, really, deregulating that sector is critical and important so that you can have...
the farmer, the Musa or Chijoke or what somebody in Benue might not understand when you say deregulate this, deregulate that. He just needs his fertile ground watered.
Yeah, but because agriculture is a big business. People must see agriculture beyond subsistence farming. That when people are going into agriculture, it's like the way you are going to do fertilizer, for example. That same way
Fertilizer
water
is in the hands of
yeah, this is what it is. So you must understand it from this perspective.
Are you still going back to putting water in the hands of the rich?
Yeah, water is an input in this regard. It's an input. So if this guy is buying fertilizer,
okay,
yeah, so he should also be able to buy water.
On the part of buying water, I had to still pause and go, no. Okay, our guest is here. Our guest is here. We have Engineer Caleb Terkuma Tyowuah, and he's here. He is the Acting Managing Director of the Upper Benue River Basin Development Authority, YOLA. So, sir, you're welcome to SOUQ PULSE.
Yeah, good to have you. Good evening.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much.
Good
now,
yeah,
let's continue. We have Dr. Idahosa here, and he's also saying hi to you.
Yeah, good evening, Dr. Idahosa.
Audio, I hope you can hear me now. Let's go straight. Now, for the River Basin authorities, you've been there for a very long time, and you head one of the major river basin authorities, the both Benue, sure. That's the food basket of this nation, and you head the Upper River Benue Basin Authority. Let's look at your side of the basin and rural development. To what extent has your basin impacted the rural communities within your location?
Yes, thank you. A lot in terms of irrigated agriculture by assisting farmers with the irrigation pumps. Mostly recently we're emphasizing small-scale irrigation system, which is farmer managed, reaching onto the farmers and supply them with the necessary irrigation equipment during wash boreholes for them to enable them do dry season farming, which is more reliable than the rainy season farming, which is subject to flooding or even drought. So with this dry season farming, the farmers have everything at his control. He control the rate at which he apply the water. He even control when he do the weeding and control when he applied the fertilizer and even the strain of chemicals. So this go a long way in boosting their yield to a very large extent. So we have been involved recently in encouraging these farmers with irrigation pumps. And then recently we are planning to go further because of the high cost of fuel. Most of them are finding it difficult to maintain the diesel or the pump the petrol pumps. So we are trying to encourage them with solar irrigation pumps, which are going to be more sustainable for them in the current situation of high cost of petrol and diesel in the country.
That's very encouraging. Now let's bring it down to, when I looked at some of the functions of the river basins, I saw that you are not just doing irrigation, you are not just helping farmers, you are down to specific crop processing. I got asking, for you in Yola, what crops exactly is your focus in the last 1 year and in a year to come? Is it maize? Is it rice? Is it beans? Do they farm beans that much in Yola?
Over in here in Yola, the focus is mostly on rice, because that is the one that is more profitable to the farmer and is easily planted and cropped within minimal expenses. And most of the farmers are very adapted to the technology of rice farming, and with a lot of researches going on in the rice production, there are a lot of varieties that the farmers have become very conversant with that give them a very high return. So most of them, we encourage them and they go into rice farming on a commercial basis. Most of the farmers have graduated from just being a peasant farming from 1 hectare to some of them are even going up to 10 hectares on their own with the little assistance they are getting from us.
Back to Doc, I have this question. Now, a lot of your activities, it's also what we see happening with Ministry of Agriculture and Ministry of Water Resources. There are some other agencies too. Is there any form of synergy across board between the river basins, the Ministry of Agriculture, and the Ministry of Water Resources? You get me on that? Okay, we'll come back to you once you are here with us. So, Doc, let me get back to you. On this particular issue, he is looking at, okay, good. He said if you want to chase something, focus on one particular thing and win it. Beat it big.
Good.
They are looking at rice. From the Yola, upper Benue. Lower Benue will definitely be looking at yam and the other things. But now let's look at these ministries. We have Ministry of Agriculture, we have Ministry of Water Resources, we have the oceanographer, blah, blah, blah. We have the Blue Economy Ministry. But a lot of these activities are all intertwined. A lot of budget is going to this same kind of thing. Where is this synergy going to come from?
Yeah, that's been one big challenge that you look at when, of course, you're looking at agencies or government or ministries, and you don't know where the authority of one starts and where that of the other person will end. But basically, I think that if you have a minister that sits at the Federal Executive Council meeting, this synergy should not be very difficult. But I think the biggest challenge that we all face is the fact that we have not been able to write a strategy paper to say, okay, this is what we are going to focus on. Most of the things that we talk about them so broadly that we are not able to narrow them to specifics. Take, for example, we're talking about rice production. We must be able to segment and say, okay, which area will we get better yield of rice? And that's, of course, a function of research. And because, of course, they won't produce the same. Somebody said some time ago, if you plant an hectare of land in Nigeria, it can maybe give you 3,000 tons of rice. But if you do it elsewhere, it can give you up to 6,000 tons of rice. So this is area that come from Ministry of Agriculture that often provide that research that will help these people. And then, of course, when you are channeling your energy, you make sure that you are pushing that energy to where you're going to get the best and maximum return. So it's not like putting resource in places where you cannot get a huge return. So if we have government sitting down to tell themselves and say, this is where we are driving to, then we call all the stakeholders to say, okay, this is this stakeholder, this is your role here, this is your role here, this is your role here, this is your role here. in reaching this goal, then everybody focus on that goal as a global goal and do our own individual part in it, and then we can get to where we should be.
Getting to where we should be. Let's look at these numbers again. 12 river basins in Nigeria, which is well enough to cover half of the farmlands in Nigeria.
Yeah, that is what it is here. Like Caleb has analyzed, rice is profitable down the upper Yola. So when you see Yola, then you come to Anambra State, for example. You go to Benue, Owena, you come to Cross River, and all this area. There are agricultural produce that is specific to the cultures in these places. And we can actually amplify them and make them big farm. And you can imagine those sources converge in one. Nigeria become the retro basket of the world.
But now the question will now be, is it the river basins that are going to conduct the farming, or the people that are going to?
No, it's the people.
So now what is the parley between the people and the river basins?
The river basin basically, fundamentally, is first and foremost to provide irrigation to the farmers.
To the farmers, no? Yes. That's now the question. Do they know?
They do. They understand their mandate.
Not the river basins, the farmers. The people on the street, the one that is picking up the hole or getting a tractor, does he know that somebody is supposed to assist him get water in the dry season?
Yeah, they may not know to that extent, but again, you're also looking at it. It's not smallholder farmers really, because you're also looking at it because of the logistics of moving this water. And
the smallholder farmers can aggregate, and they will just, okay, for this entire place, doesn't matter how big your farm is, we are bringing water to this point, so you take it from this point to where your farm gets.
Yeah, that is what strategy will do.
So who does the strategy, the farmer or the basin?
Yeah, I think it will, not the water basin. The water basin knows to supply. It's these people to agree collectively and put themselves into like a cooperative. And in those days, I think that was what was happening. I know that...
they used to be very popular.
Yeah, farmers come together, especially families come together and go to a particular spot to take land, and then, of course, you have very massive farm. In that case, it is easy for you to be able to supply water to that entire environment. But when you are having people who are having farm indiscriminately at different places, the challenge of being able to actually channel water becomes very expensive. And then, of course, with agencies that are not properly funded, they will not be able to achieve that mandate.
Okay, on this particular note, he didn't tell us the agency is not properly funded. We will try get him back here. It's just a connection issue, so it will be resolved. SOUQ Pulse will go on a very short break. When we return, we'll take this a notch higher. We'll ask some particular questions as it concerns not just productivity, but also some other activities and potentials of the river basins. I'll ask ourselves, where is it? Where have we gotten to? How can we transition from potentials to reality? Don't go anywhere. SOUQ Pulse will be right back. Yes, this is SOUQ Pulse, and we are here live on SOUQ News. My name is Chuks, John Rogers Chuks, and we are looking at the river basins and asking directly, what impact have they made on agriculture in the last 51 years? That's a long time. I have Dr. Idahosa here, and the entire crew and myself, we are here and talking, so should you. We also have Engineer Caleb Terkuma. He is the acting managing director of Upper Benue River Basin Development Authority in Yola. So, if you can hear me, let's get back to this. Now, before we went on break, Dr. Idahosa was saying something about funding. So this question is coming to you. How funded is your agency before we get to others? How funded are the river basin agencies? Definitely get back to us. Yola is experiencing some issues. They will sort it out. So, sir, from the way you sounded, it's as if you are an insider and you know something. So, how funded is the river basin authorities?
Well, because I don't work in the agencies, so I will not be able to really say whether the agencies are well funded or not. But I have had a couple of funded. Yes, to some extent, at least the personnel under the payroll of government, and then of course they are included in the fully funded agencies. So they cannot be working there for free, as I guess. So that's part of funding, as it were. So whether it is,
they get international funding too.
So whether this gets into capital,
can you talk about that?
What exactly the capital project funding is like for them, I have no idea really. Okay. But the point here is the fact that not just this agency, and I think more other agencies of government, that of course what we simply do is trying to see that we are still existing, and the ability to be able to pay salary, that's what is uppermost in the heart. And the real true things that will make people to be able to do what they are supposed to do, the mandate that the law has empowered them to do, those resources may not be there. But because it's an act, I don't know whether the 1987 Act has been amended or repealed, because the 1987 Act repealed the 1979 Act of the River Basin Authority. Now, that law says that, of course, it's going to be fully government-owned. Now, for they to be able to get support for private players, then, of course, the law also had to change and allow for those room for people to pull in money in that agency.
But they get some foreign funding sometimes, from time to time. Some of the river basins get foreign assisted funding. Some dams have been constructed through the river basin. Some irrigation dams have been constructed. Some damping, to the extent of electrification, is on the potentials.
Yes, it's part of the potential, yeah. Because you have small dams here that can provide electricity for rural communities and the rest of it. These are part of things that, of course, they could be.
From.
Yeah. But when you look at it, well,
basin.
Yeah, check and you can fact check that. Which was the last dam that was constructed in Nigeria and when? So it gives you an idea.
Is it on paper or on ground?
On ground. So you
what
see.
About on paper?
Yeah. So which last dam was constructed in Nigeria and when?
On paper or on?
This gives you an idea of whether these donor funds are coming as you insinuate.
Okay. We are not just insinuating, because let's not pull up those particular papers. Now let's look at some potentials. Now, various crops can be grown successfully. This is potentials from their own side, from the Nigerian River Basin side. Massive irrigation potentials of over 3.14 million hectares, as against 100,000 hectares that is currently done. So if we make that particular subtraction, we still have 3.04 million hectares. So when can this potential turn to reality?
Yeah, there's a huge opportunity, like we've highlighted, of converting this. It will only become reality when, of course, the requisite fund that is required gets to the agency, and there they can deliver.
Requisite fund?
Yes.
Okay. Let's also look at another potential. Small to large-scale hydroelectric power generating capacity. On that particular side, they said largely untapped. What happens to Ministry of Power? What happens to the energy commissions?
Yeah.
What happens to the power plants that are coming from private sector? How do we get to align this so that we can be able to just speak with one voice? But you've gone there. Yeah. We just have to go back.
Yeah. Like I have always argued in my presentation, is the fact that you need strategic leadership. For example, as a country, that we are going to be able to prioritize the things that we need to do to get into the heart of the goal we have set for ourselves as a nation. And once this strategy is not there, resource will be wasted. Now, take for example, we have agreed with ourselves that, look, we want to actually face some huge fact where we have a lot of deficits in terms of power supply. You see, a collaboration between those who generate power and the River Basin Authority will be a huge payoff if we prioritize it. That we're looking beyond just supply of water or irrigation to farm. We're also saying that electrification of rural areas is achieved on a massive scale. And this become a plus really for government. But like they say, where there is no vision, people cast off restraint. And I think that's the case that we have in hand at the moment.
Where there is no vision,
Yeah.
people perish. Okay. Now, before those that decide to perish,
No, did say
walk that line, do you see possibilities of cancelling these duplicities among these agencies?
Yeah, I think so, that there's a need to actually see a way to harmonize some of all these things, because really, without clear boundaries, people really don't know, because one agencies are duplicating efforts and it's not producing the requisite result or outcome that government itself wants. So to that very large extent, I think some of all these things can actually be warehoused, and then we find a way to align these roles and functions so that people who are supposed to be managing the water body understand that this is my role, and this is our role, and this is our role. But of course, you know the way it is with government, because it has become like a social service to create job for a lot of people. So we have not been able to see how to align some of all these functions. Even the Orosai report that was recently acclaimed to be enforced, we don't know at what phase or stage it is, which was supposed to have done this alignment and see that agency with similar responsibility come together and drive the entire process to see success happen. Then, of course, the performance can become better, and then, of course, the nation become really better for it.
Still where you are, because I don't want you to land on that particular note. You still have to go back there. Now we see the River Basin authorities, aside agriculture, one of their major mandates is also rural development, community development. Them and local government. Now their funding is coming majorly from the federal government. How do we align, okay, rural development, but there's no local government involvement? How do we align it? If we now say, okay, good, now local government is going to start getting, if the courts agree and say, yes, go ahead, getting their funding, how can we align the River Basin authorities and the local government and the communities within the local government?
Yeah, but you also have to look at it from conflict strategy to see that if you are going to give this authority to the local governments, you are going to see water crossing local governments even beyond states, and how do you aggregate this thing to fund. And I think that's where you find that the federal government is the best to actually manage some of all this agency. What we need is actually to have buy-in from private sector really, and then of course participate big, and there's fund to actually channel some of all this water, and then it become revenue earner for the agency and for the government.
You keep going back to water becoming the revenue earner. The average Nigerian, the average African is not ready to go buy water from his river, or buy water from the ocean, or buy water from any of the lakes.
It is a reality that we have to face at some point, because if we don't also manage how these water resources is used.
We have been managing it before the involvement of commercialization.
Let me give you one recent example. The last time I was in the UAE, I saw a building that was being constructed, and the excavation was going deep down in the soil. So I was making inquiry from the engineers who were on site to ask exactly why was this level of excavation. And they told me that that entire region was waterbed, but the water dried up, and so all you find there is sand. So water can go into extinction.
Yes, water can go into extinction, either man-made or non-man-made.
Yes, man-made or non-man-made. And this is the reason why it is important to manage the body of water so that it is not abused. And you have agencies who are managing this body of water, and you must put some boundaries around it so that we don't lose it, because one of the scarcest commodity on earth today is actually water.
If you're offering services based on water bodies, good and fine, people should be able to pay for the services you're offering. But at the same time, I don't think, or if you think that we should pay for my farm to get irrigated when I can get it done myself.
It's just like also saying, for example,
going back to the first
Yeah, yeah.
But going back to the same first question.
Yeah,
That
because
paying for the water and
agriculture,
commercialization
agriculture is a commercial enterprise. We have to first accept that reality.
Definitely.
And if it is a commercial enterprise, and okay, for example, I want to do animal husbandry and I have to rely on water, and I'm rearing a camel or a cattle that can drink up to 4, 5, 6, 7 gallons of water in a day, and then I put all these things together, and we're going to draw down resources from the body of the water. So this is what we're saying. Now,
if you provide the water,
yeah,
I should pay you.
Yeah,
that's not an issue.
Yeah,
but if I can provide the water myself, why should I pay you?
But if you have listened to Caleb just now, you said he mentioned that they're trying to make pump.
Yeah, solar powered
solar power pumps to drive this water. So, of course, if you have a pump in place, of course, you have electricity to power it.
Yes.
Somebody is funding it.
Pay for that service.
Yeah, that is what it is. So,
but if I'm providing the service myself, why should I pay you again because I'm taking water from the water body?
Individuals should not be allowed to abuse the body of water. That's the point.
But when the agency does it, it's not abuse. Okay. Yeah. Let's keep going. Now, for the river basins, who do they answer to?
Yeah, like I said, the river basin, in the board, there's a representative of the Ministry of Water Resources who is a member in the board. So, which means automatically, the agency is under the Ministry of Water Resources.
So they answer.
Yeah.
They don't answer directly to
Mr. President.
The powers that be.
No.
Okay. Now, on this particular note, let's now bring it back. We still have issues with reduced food production in Nigeria, in Africa to be precise. But it's worse on this side of our divide, the West Africa side of it. If you happen to get into any of these river basins, what is the first thing you will change as it concerns agriculture?
Well, like I have known, if you ask me to go into River Basin Authority, there's no other thing I'll advocate to say, federal government, we have to deregulate it and allow other participants to play so that if we have to get the value that we are looking for, then we must be ready to pay the price. Good governance does not come free. It comes at a cost. And if people are not willing to pay the cost, then of course we don't dream about it. This is the reality. And if we are not willing to deal with reality, then of course it is difficult to handle, especially when you have a state that is debt burdened. You have a state that has paucity of resource. And then you now have to also encumber government further by an assignment that require huge funding, and then the fund is not there.
Now let's come back to the people. How do we get the people aware that there are river basins scattered around the entire geopolitical zones that are supposed to serve the farming community?
Yeah, but I think it's a lot of advocacy that needs to be done in that regard. The last time I was speaking to one of my friends in Benue River Basin Authority, there's a need to talk more about it because people need to really understand what they are there for. If you go to the rural areas, they really do not know that these agencies exist. And that's a big problem. So the only way you make yourself known is to tell people that you exist. And that, of course, requires a lot of advocacy, a lot of talking, communication that are targeted to reach the audience and to say, this is what we do, this is why so they have to create a relevance for themselves.
They have to create a relevance for themselves.
Yeah.
Now, for everyone out there, remember, we have to not just create relevance, we have to feed ourselves. So if we have to get our hands dirty and get to the farm, then a wet ground should not be lacking. This is where the river basin come into. Now, don't also miss this. They are also mandated to not just make the lands wet for crops, also help process and also store. I saw that and it blew my mind. Now, how many silos do you have in your locality? Call up the closest river basin to you and ask them those questions. We all need to stand up and count. It's not all about waiting for one government to do it. If you don't stand up and ask questions and demand services, things will remain the same. But remember, we all also have to get our hands dirty and get into agriculture. If you can get to the farm, make sure your money gets there, or make sure you advise people that get there. But in any way, if we don't do nothing, the prices will keep going up. Because if you are importing the food, you know what you're paying for it. Thank you very much for hanging in there. Doc, thank you very much for being on SOUQ Pulse again.
It's a pleasure. As only I couldn't interact with Caleb. The network was not too friendly.
Yeah, Yola, we are going to send our fine to you. You didn't treat us well on this beautiful Friday. So to Mr. Caleb, Engineer Caleb, I want to say thank you very much for coming in. We hope next time your network will be way, way better than it was today. So for everyone that was part of the show today, I want to say thank you. To the crew behind the cameras, the crew behind the sound, those in the master control room, I want to say thank you very much. It's been a beautiful day. Remember, we can only get better when we take responsibility and stop making excuses. This is SOUQ Pulse, where we talk. My name is Chuks, John Rogers Chuks. Have yourself a beautiful weekend. And remember, love your brother like yourself.